We are live now.
Okay, so I would like to call to order the New York State Board of Real Estate Appraisers for Wednesday, November 6th, 2024. We'll just go through and do a quick head count. I'm Steve Rufero, Board Chair.
Susan Baldwin, Board Member.
New York City.
Chanel Washington.
Ernest Delaney, Department of State.
Thank you, Ernest. Albany.
Allison Lacey, Department of State.
Jenna Birchwinger, Department of State.
Emily Loopy, Department of State.
Candace Burchett, Department of State.
Shannon McGuire, Department of State.
Any staff members of DOS that are in alternate locations? David?
David Mossberg, Department of State.
Thank you, David. Okay, so introductions and roll call are completed. We do not have a quorum. We do not have any action items in which to vote on, so we will continue with the agenda. Under agenda item 2, department reports, enforcement, Ernest Delaney.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. This enforcement report will cover the period from August 22nd, 2024 up until today. Over that time period, New York Department of State has received a total of 13 new appraiser complaints. And over that same period, we completed the investigation on 21 complaints. Of those 21 complaints, the disposition include 18 complaints, which we closed out due to no violation, and 3 complaints which we referred to our counsel's office with the recommendation of disciplinary action. Our current appraiser complaint case log is 27 cases.
Thanks, Ernest.
Okay. And Jenna, you have more to add?
Yeah, so I'm just gonna expand on it just quickly. In regards to those cases that are currently still open, they're in a variety of stages. Some we're still awaiting on a response from the appraiser. Some we're awaiting a report from our regional advisors, and some are just pending review of that report that may have been submitted by the regional advisor. I also just gathered some additional information just to talk about. So I looked at complaints for the year of 2023 as well as 2024. And from January 1 to December 31 of 23, we had 80 appraiser complaints docketed. And of those 80 cases, 62 were submitted by state agencies or lenders such as Fannie Mae or JP Morgan Chase. Half of those 62 state agency lender cases were closed as no violation, and the other half were referred to our attorneys due to some type of use cap violation. Only 4 of the 18 complaints that were filed by members of the public were referred for some type of use cap. All others were closed for no violation. And then in comparison for this year, from January 1 to present, we've had a total of 58 appraiser case docketed. And of those 58, 37 have been submitted by state agencies or lenders. And of those 37, 14 have been closed as no violation. 9 have been referred for some sort of use cap violation. And as we mentioned, 27 are still currently being worked and investigated. So that's just in regards to like our appraiser complaints. And then for our appraiser application audits, we just kind of took a look at the data for 2024. And for our application experience audits, 0 applications have been denied in 2024. So we took a look at those audits, and a common theme was unsigned appraisal reports. However, we request that the applicant provide other proof that they significantly assisted on the reports, including things such as invoices, copies of check payments, etc. And the proof that has been provided has been satisfactory, thus resulting in 0 denials.
Okay, so I have a question. At one point, I had asked Ernest to kind of just give me a general idea how many of the cases were coming in through either Freddie or Fannie Mae on use cap violations. Am I assuming that within those state agencies, that's where those would be?
Yep.
Ernest, have we seen a steady, still the same steady number of those federal agencies sending in violations at about the same rate?
Yeah, we anticipate that it will make up most of our caseload. The higher percentage of our caseload. So yes, from 2023, 2024, they still are sending in a number of complaints.
Okay, all right. Are there any questions of Ernest or Jenna? Okay, moving forward, thanks guys for the update, appreciate that. Under section 2, item B, processing report, Emily Loopy.
Good afternoon. Included in the meeting materials you were provided are licensing statistics for September of 2023 and September of 2024. These reports show the number of real estate appraisers broken down by county and class code or license type. The reports show a change of about 5% fewer from the same time last year. This is consistent with the percentage decrease from our last meeting, which were statistics from July of 2023 and July of 2024. At that time, I had noted that prior reports showed a decrease of about 3% from year to year. So while the previous reports were showing about a 3% decrease, the past 2 reports have shown about a 5% decrease. And that concludes the processing report.
Okay. Are there any questions of Emily? So we're starting to see a more of a decrease over the last, if you went 22 to 23, you went from 3% to 5%, and that remains stagnant, another 5% reduction between 23 and 24, correct?
Yes, yep. So for July of 2023 and 2024 and September of 2023, the September of 2024, just that steady 5% decrease. So it's not an additional 5% decrease, but the percentage decrease is steady when comparing the years.
So you have the same number coming in and going out from 23 to 24. All right, any questions of Emily? All right, Emily, thank you for that report. Item C, under 2, continuing education audits. Allison?
Good afternoon.
Hi,
I'll
Allison.
be reporting on the appraiser continuing education audits. We randomly select a percentage of monthly renewals and all late renewals for this audit. For the months of January 2024 through October 2024, we conducted a total of 82 audits. Out of that 82, 55 have complied and 6 are still within the time frame to respond to the audit letter. And that concludes the education report about continuing education audits.
Okay. Are there any questions of the continuing education audit? All right, thank you, Allison. Moving on to new business. David Mossberg will give us the Pararia and the AQB updates.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, David.
Just a short update for everyone, but we have been working on the regulatory changes, both to adopt PIREA as well as to update all of our regulations to conform to the 2026 AQB update. So I want to thank just Allison, Lacey, and the rest of the DOS team because they've been extraordinarily helpful in drafting and helping me draft those regs. We are still in the early process of creating the rest of the documentations necessary to move forward with those 2 proposals. We had an internal meeting with a few of my colleagues, and for technical reasons, we're going to have to propose them as 2 separate rulemaking packages, but we anticipate that both will be able to be adopted on or before January 1, 2026. So they're going to be moving together, but for technical reasons, they will likely be 2 different rulemaking packages. So Hopefully at our next meeting, when we have a quorum, I'll be able to present all of the regulatory text and all of the other documents that would be necessary to move forward with both rulemakings. But in short, basically, we're just still working on it.
Does anyone have questions of David? I have one, Dave. You know, I couldn't let you get away. Pararia, if the regulatory changes are accepted in on January 1st, 2026, are we then on the clock that we have to do the public notice? We have to wait for remarks? Are we moving into that once we get off January 1st?
No. So the idea would be probably if we can, if I can get the rest of the documents drafted and then the rest of the internal reviews approved. The next step would be is that we would have the board reconvene. I would present the actual rule text to the board. Once the board approves the final rule text, both on PIREA and the AQB, the next step would be for the department to file those rules, which we would be able to do, potentially on the day of the week, even that day. What would happen is once it's filed, there's a 2-week window for publication in the state register. So, and after that 2-week period, that's when the public comment period starts.
Okay.
So the idea would be is a hypothetical best case scenario, we meet again next month or, early January. I'm able to present all of the documents to the board. The board votes and approves next month or in January. We file it immediately after that, 2 weeks after that, that's when the public comment starts. It'll run for, I believe it's 90 days. Actually, no, sorry, because we have to bifurcate, it's going to be the 60-day ones. And then after that, we would be able to adopt. So we would hopefully be able to do all the necessary paperwork so that it will be in place, effective, and law on January 1, 2026.
Okay, thank you for the update. All right, if there's no other questions of David, thank you as usual. Under new business, item B, Education Regulation Subcommittee update. Allison?
Hello again.
Hello.
This is just a brief summary of the AQB regulation changes for all levels of licensure and the subcommittee meeting we had in late September. On September 24th, 2024, the appraisers subcommittee met to discuss the new qualifying educational changes prescribed by the AQB for all levels of appraiser licensure. The changes discussed included the following. Effective January 1st, 2026, appraisers must successfully complete an 8-hour course titled Valuation Bias and Fair Housing Laws and Regulations. In addition, the 4-hour or 7-hour version of this course must be completed for license renewal. The next thing we discussed was the addition of the 8-hour Valuation Bias and Fair Housing Laws and Regulations course. That meant that our residential elective course hours are going to be reduced from 20 hours total down to 12 hours. We also discussed, once again, the addition of that 8-hour course. That means our general elective course hours are being reduced from 30 hours total to 22 hours. At the subcommittee meeting, we also went over Department of State's recommended instructional hour changes within the residential and general electives, and no questions or comments were received by the subcommittee members. In addition, because the new 8-hour course contains content on fair housing and fair lending, Department of State proposed removing content related to fair housing and fair lending within residential elective 2 and general elective 1. Subcommittee members agreed that the content was redundant, so the removal of that content will be moving forward with that. Lastly, it was decided that General Elective 3, which is titled Using the HP 12C Financial Calculator, should be kept as an elective option for the general appraiser classification. Subcommittee members received the proposed instructional hour changes for GE3, and we are awaiting their input. And that includes my subcommittee update report.
So, are there any questions of Allison on the education regulation subcommittee update?
Did we change the number of courses at all when you say you remove the HP 12C as being an option, is now optional?
We
It's
didn't
not named
add
to
or
us.
remove.
What'd you say?
Can you say that again? I'm
Add
sorry,
or
Allison.
remove any courses, I'm sorry.
We didn't remove any courses.
Let's see.
So from here, I mean, so the subcommittee, we went through the information on hand. The subcommittee had no questions. Does that mean in the January meeting, we'll present that, the full board to vote on?
I believe so, we're just awaiting some feedback on General Elective 3.
Okay.
And that information was sent via email.
Great. Is that something that we could send out? Is that just the subcommittee members, or can we send it out to full board so they can digest that and then we can vote on it in January?
That sounds like, that might be a David question, I'm not sure.
I mean, the full board can take a look at it whenever the material is ready. So I don't see any harm with sharing that with the board. It would certainly make sense to send it to them prior to the board vote anyway.
Yeah. I mean, and really, the subcommittee, all the subcommittees can do is make a recommendation to the full board. And I think that we've gotten to the point with the draft, at least coming out of the subcommittee meeting, I felt we were pretty well firm on how we were moving forward. And I guess that's back to Allison.
Yes, I got the
Okay.
same impression at the subcommittee meeting as well, that we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
And we're ready to present our material to whomever right before our next meeting.
Okay, so why don't we get that out to the board, and then so they can digest it before the meeting? As long as David said it's okay to send it out, I mean, it's a subcommittee of the main board.
Will do.
Thank you, appreciate that. All right, are there any other questions of Allison? So at this point, I want to thank all you guys because there was a lot of information we went through. You guys got everything ready, presented it. We went through it in a timely fashion. We moved through these items. So I thank staff and David for putting everything together, allowing the subcommittee to comment and then move on from there. Nice job on that. Item C under new business is a potential, pardon me, our potential next board meeting is January 14th at 10 a.m.
That is correct. I have that tentatively scheduled. It would be important for all of the board members to be there for you to be able to vote on what David and everyone is working on to present to us. So everyone could put that on
Okay.
their calendar, that would be great.
I think I got conflict.
Sue's checking her calendar, but while Sue and I discussed earlier on her write-in, do we have any idea? I know that we're not supposed to be involved in or have access to the process of new appointees, but do we have any idea when we'll be filling some of the positions? Because I know we've got some applications and some interest.
I have not heard anything.
Because, I mean, we need everybody at the meeting to have a quorum.
Yeah.
And we also know that Lillian, if she had her choice, would want to be replaced.
So,
And that makes me nervous.
because if she resigns, I don't know what we're gonna do. We're not gonna be effective. There's only 4 members on a 9-member board. And the state requires, a quorum of the 9 seats. So I would say, I don't know who we have to talk to or what bug has to go in whoever's ear, but we gotta do something. Because those use PAP updates have to be passed
By when?
by January 20, they're effective. The use PAP updates, David, are effective January 1st, 2026, right?
Yeah, the new AQB requirements. Yep.
Okay, so we have a year, but still, I mean, we're getting to the point where, you know, if we don't have a quorum and something has to be passed, and we're kind of under new business, so I'll say this, I don't think it's fair that we don't have a quorum and then 2 weeks later, we expect everybody to get back together. Listen, I appreciate the fact that you guys have done a yeoman's job of opening up new locations and making it easier for us. I also don't think it's fair to you guys, we drag you into these things every 2 weeks, we don't get something, we don't get a quorum. So I think we should move up somewhere in our checklist of things to do is to see where are we with these appointees. I mean, I don't know what the logistics are internally for us to ask the question and possibly get an answer. So we're at the mercy of you guys, but I think it's somewhere in the 2025 agenda, we gotta start moving on these things. Because if somebody decides something happens to someone on a medical emergency,
Yeah.
we're gonna be, David, how effective are we if we have 4 members? Can we do anything?
And legally, you can't. You need the quorum.
No. So, I mean, it's gotta be in someone, I don't know who to ask. So we're at the mercy of you guys. How can we get the call out to the fact that we need at least one new board member? Because if we fall to 4, we can't do anything.
And I know Howard Newman has, again, reached out, sent his resume directly to the person who needs to have it. He's reached out again and asked, I just talked to him yesterday. We saw the woman here in, well, not in Albany, but a woman that is in the Albany area. She lives downtown. I'm making it, Howard can go to the New York City office. This woman that I chose for Albany, 2 years ago, whenever I chose her, she's right downtown. So I'm trying to make sure it's very convenient for folks so they can make some of these meetings. And we really need 3 more appointees. We need 3 more people.
If we had 2, I mean, we can work on it. So,
Yeah,
Are
certainly,
you-
if there are applicants that you're aware of, they can,
I have.
reach out directly to Candy, and Candy has,
I directed them to the proper, because unfortunately, we can't appoint any of the,
We know that, we understand,
no,
but it's a
Yeah.
hurdle.
so, yeah, so I've sent them where they could send their letters of interest and resumes, but I haven't heard anything since then.
Are you allowed to say like every Monday, call them and find status until we get something done?
We can talk to Jody about that. She's out today. I think she's back
Okay.
tomorrow though. She might be a good point person to discuss this with because this process is new to me and I'd like to become familiar with it. So we could certainly talk to her and see what we can do to find
Okay.
out where those applications are and what needs to be done.
so let me ask a question. So Candace, the 2 individuals she's speaking of, that Sue's speaking of, they've been in touch with you?
They've
I'm just trying to
sent
figure out-
me a copy of their letter of interest and their resumes, and
Okay.
I've told them that if you look in your
Yeah.
folder,
Yeah,
and I don't remember off the top of my head which
No,
offices they had sent it to, but I told them the offices that were, or the offices that were open, the vacancies that were open, and where to send their resume to.
Can I
I
ask
would
a
say that
question?
it doesn't hurt to follow up and Candy can reshare the information.
I can.
okay. Chanel, did you have a question?
Yes, my question is, prior to me coming on the board, when was the last time someone was appointed?
it would be me,
It would be Sue, which was this
would
your
be
second year?
I'm working
far?
towards my second year.
Your second term
I've been.
or second
since we
year?
had- I've been here since we had dial telephones. That's how long I've been here.
Well, I was saying that to
It's
see
funny, but it's
maybe
pretty close.
her and I can get together since we are the last to be appointed to see, because I guess we are the last to come through a process and try to see if we can have a conversation about how we can possibly, because obviously if we're the last 2 to get appointed, we had to do something to get here. So maybe her
Right,
and
so
I
you would
can
have the
have
most
a.
recent, you would have the most recent experience, so obviously be the best people in the room to talk about it.
I was
Got it.
asked by who?
Joel?
No, Barkley. I was asked to be on the board, I sent in my information, a couple months later, I got a letter in the mail, and it did not take 2 years. Then as soon as I got on the board and saw that we had vacancies, I asked both Howard and I think it's Kate Frank to join the board. So they've been out there a year and a half to going on 2 years trying to get on this board.
Yeah, I've spent more than 2 years trying to just get somebody on the board. So I probably sent the speaker my resume, and I would like to say 2018, 2017. So, yeah.
Okay, so at this point,
And I think some electeds are not aware of their appointments to certain boards. May be an issue also. Maybe the governor, staff that handles her appointments are not aware that they have a vacancy. I don't know, Mr. Mossberg, do you know? Or would you know that information by any chance, David?
So I know that internally we have an Office of Interagency Affairs and Government Affairs that does communicate with the executive chamber about vacancies. I don't know whether or not the vacancies on this particular board, however, are governor appointees. So of the 9 members, only 3 members are appointed by the governor.
Right.
The rest are either appointed by the temporary president of the Senate, or the Speaker of the Assembly, or the minority leaders of both houses. So
presently, we have a governor's appointment open, we have a temp president of the Senate, Senate minority leader, and the Speaker of the Assembly. Those are the 4 vacancies that we have.
And then you should really include the other governor, public member governor for Lillian.
Would we be able to put a letter together as the board saying just, hey, we just want to highlight that these vacancies are currently, they're vacant, and send it to these particular elected offices so that they're aware? Because maybe they're not aware.
again, so I wouldn't be able to speak to, what any of these elected officials know or don't know. I could only speak to my experience with respect to the executive chamber. I do believe that our director of office affairs would regularly communicate board vacancies to the executive chamber. Unfortunately, this isn't the only board where there are vacancies at the Department of State. So to the extent that, I can alleviate any concerns that perhaps the board members are concerned that it's only this board, that isn't the case. But, certainly I think, and as Jenna had mentioned, this is something that we could go back to Jody about as the director of licensing, and certainly express to her the clear frustration about the lack of members, and to see whether or not, at least with respect to executive chamber appointments, whether or not there's any progress that could be made on that.
And Candace, you could also go back and speak to the individuals that have showing interest, see if they've heard anything. Somewhere along the process, somebody's going to interview them, obviously, and invent them. So I'm just wondering if they have invented, and at least it just gives us an idea of, before it becomes an emergency, trying to be a little proactive. We've been proactive for a few years, trying to get, before we do fall before, and then we're in the abyss. Let's see if we can move some of these things along, that's all.
What if we also, so somebody said something about the director of office of affairs, that maybe if we had an email for that office, and maybe we sent a letter to that person directly to say we need these positions filled, I don't know.
I think probably if Candace checks with the two individuals that are in the pipeline and I have a conversation with Jody, maybe we can get a little more directive as to how to get the point across. I mean, I'm sure there's a number of boards that are in the same situation that we are. My concern is that we're gonna fall. Someone's gonna decide and we're gonna fall into the point we can't do anything.
Hello?
And then the federal agencies are gonna come in and review and we're gonna be like, well, we can't do anything. I'd rather not go there.
Yeah, I don't want to be on the board for a directive.
All right,
So,
so there's a healthy conversation on that. Candace, you can just check with the individuals that are in the pipeline, and then I'll put a phone call. Thank you. I'll put a phone call to Jody and discuss it with her and see if there's any way, the suggestions that David has made about talking to somebody, and then we can move this along a little bit. All right. Thank you, guys. All right, so agenda item 4 is public comment period. There's no one in Utica here in the public arena. Is there anybody in the public arena in New York?
No.
Anybody in the public arena in Albany?
There is not, but I did want to just share some additional information with the board. So we just wanted to take a moment to discuss board members notifying our office with suggestions for agenda items. So while we do typically reach out prior to meeting to request input for potential agenda items, we just wanted to advise that suggestions can be made at any time. And, you know, as we just discussed, we may not achieve a quorum at all meetings until additional vacancies are filled.
Okay.
We would like to encourage you to share suggestions regardless. These suggestions will lead to further discussions and increase awareness among both DOS staff and other board members. And we very much appreciate your insight on topics affecting the appraisal industry.
Yeah, and we affect your guys' diligence in getting information to us and processing information and making our lives a little easier. Okay, if there's no further public comment, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion for adjourn?
Chanel, would you like to second? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? You're opposing? All right, thanks everybody for all your information, and we'll see what we can do about. So a suggestion would be for me to put in the next agenda, a discussion about board members.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thanks everybody. Have a good weekend.
All right.
I know it's
Take care, everyone.
All
Thank you.
right, bye guys, thanks.
Bye now.